Nobody has more respect for women than I do. Nobody.
Hillary Clinton wants to abolish it, believe me. She wants to abolish our Second Amendment.
I think they didn't deny it. I don't think anybody denied it.
Other presidents did not call. They'd write letters, and some presidents didn't do anything.
Many people have come out and said I'm right.
You really do have to ask yourself, where does it stop?
Hello and welcome to Fallacious Trump, the podcast where we use the insane ramblings of White Kanye to explain logical fallacies. I'm your host, Jim.
And I'm your other host, Mark. A logical fallacy is an error in reasoning that results in bad or invalid arguments. And the logical fallacy we're looking at this week is the silent majority fallacy.
So the silent majority fallacy is one where you assume that the people who are vocally opposing you are actually just a small number of the people. They represent the minority of people, but they're just making a lot of noise. And actually, all the people who aren't protesting and aren't opposing you and aren't really saying anything are not protesting because they are in favour of whatever you agree. So they are the silent majority. So
they're just being shouted down.
Yeah. And for basically any situation, anything in life, there are pretty much always more people not talking about it than there are talking about it.
Yes, there are umpteen billion people on the planet, and a small proportion of those are on Twitter. Yeah.
So there's always a big majority who are remaining silent. The fallacy comes where you use their silence, essentially. So it's a kind of a combination between the argument from silence and the argument from popularity, saying there's such a lot of people who aren't saying anything about this, they must think it's a good idea, essentially. So our first Trump example comes from a meeting that he had with some sheriffs about immigration.
I actually can't believe that we're having to fight to protect the security in a court system, to protect the security of our nation. I can't even believe it. And a lot of people agree with us, believe me. There's a group of people out there, and I mean much more than half of our country, much, much more. You're not allowed to use the term silent majority anymore, you know. You're not allowed because they make that into a whole big deal. But there's a group of people out there, massive, massive numbers, far bigger than what you see protesting. And if those people ever protested, you would see a real protest.
Yeah. If the people who don't protest ever protested, there'd be a lot more people protesting.
Yeah. And it would be a lot harder to appeal to the silent majority because the majority of them would not be silent. Yeah. And you're assuming that they're protesting for the notion that you're advocating rather than against it.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And also, you're not allowed to use the silent majority anymore because they make a big deal of that. Yeah, we'll get to why that might be later on. Right. Yeah.
But the assumption there is that the protesters who are, in this case, this was back in 2017, so there have been so many protests, it's a bit unclear what he's exactly referring to here. But
it's a great deal. It's much more than half. Much
whatever they were protesting, those people are in the minority, basically.
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
So our second example from Trump comes from a response in a coronavirus press conference. He was asked something about whether he thought that anybody else would be leaving his cabinet before the election, which had nothing to do with this answer.
Right.
I think we have a silent majority, the likes of which has never been seen before. I think you read about it, where 62% of the people say they're not even telling the truth on polling, and where the polling is fake, you know, where they do registered voters and where they do many more Democrats than they do Republicans. Same as happened last time. But this year, I think we have much more enthusiasm. Maybe those people back there would understand it better than anybody. But I think there's more enthusiasm for 2020 than there was even for 2016. And 2016 was a record. You found that out. And I believe there's much more enthusiasm now than there was even in 2016. We have a silent majority, the likes of which nobody has seen. I just looked. There are thousands of boats in lakes, rivers, and oceans, thousands and thousands of boats. It's called Boaters for Trump, Boaters for Trump Pence. There's signs all over. Some of the boats have 10 flags on them. They're incredible. There are thousands. We did nothing to do this. This is just generic. It just happened.
So he's doing a weird thing here because he's claiming that the thousands of boats on lakes and rivers especially ones with even up to 10 flags on,
Up to 10 flags. Oh, God,
are
serious voters.
are evidence of the silent majority that is
Yeah.
going to vote for him, who obviously didn't,
Yeah.
in a few weeks' time. The thing is, those people are not, by definition, part of the silent majority, because the silent majority is defined as people who aren't politically active, who don't get involved
Yeah.
and give their opinion and say what they think.
Who aren't making a noise.
These
So
people are specifically putting 10 flags on their boat to say, we think Trump is good.
We're going to vote 10 times.
They're very much not
Yeah.
being silent.
Yes. And didn't turn out to be in the majority either.
No.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the thing about 62% of people say they lie on polls, how would you... The only way you could find that out is using a poll. And and if you've got people saying, do you lie when people like me ask you questions? People go, oh, yeah, I do.
Yeah, definitely do, all the time.
No, that's not a thing. I think what he's referring to here is a survey that the Cato Institute did about a month before this, which found that 62% of people are afraid to share political views that they have. So not with pollsters. It's not like when someone specifically asks you, who do you support? They say, they lie and say they support Hillary Clinton or Joe Biden or whatever.
Yeah.
Is that people, and by people, it's 77% Republicans, 52% of Democrats, and 59% of independents that have political opinions that they're afraid to share because they think, because I believe it says others might find them offensive. Right. And I'm pretty sure 77% Republicans do have views that people would find offensive.
Yeah.
So, good.
Exactly. It's quite worrying that only 77% of them worry
only
about
77% of them recognise that they're offensive. That's the
Exactly. Yeah.
But yeah, that's what it is that these people recognise that not everyone agrees with them, and that if they express their views, some people are going to be offended, some people are going to disagree with them, so they choose not to express their views in public or talk to people about politics.
Right, which is
absolutely not the same thing as 62% of people lie on polls.
No, but that doesn't matter because he's A, willfully ignorant, and B, just ignorant.
Yeah.
About that stuff, and also he said it's the silent majority, the size of which you've never seen. Well, that's a tautological statement, isn't it? Because
never heard of them either.
Yeah, no, never heard of them. The thing, like you'd never heard. But if it is a silent majority, and you can't see them, how do you know it's the biggest one? Because you wouldn't have been able to see the other ones either.
Yeah.
Well, I guess it comes from the smaller your minority, or the smaller the minority is arguing against you, the larger the majority must therefore be in the zero sum of politics. You're either for the issue or you're against it.
Yeah.
What the hell?
And now is the time, I think, for Mark's British politics corner.
I don't know whether it's a stretch of the thing, because I'm talking to you from France, where I had to change the little sticker on the back of my car on my license plate. There's a normal little thing that tells you where you come from,
in case you forget,
or in case other people look at you and they can't, and they don't really, they go, "There's no driver in that car." Oh no, the steering wheel's on the other side. The numbers used to be GB. The letters used to be GB, and now it's UK. So in British politics, we were never really GB because that includes the Republic of Ireland. So British politics, I'm going to actually talk about Scottish politics.
Hang on. I'm gonna stop you there because GB doesn't include. This is, to be fair, famously complicated. GB doesn't, no, because it's the United Kingdom of Great Britain and Northern Ireland. So UK includes more than Great Britain.
Oh, okay.
Great Britain is just the landmass.
Yeah. Oh, the British Isles.
The British Isles includes the Republic of Ireland.
Yeah.
Whereas the UK includes Northern Ireland, but not the Republic.
Right.
So Yeah.
Okay, of Great Britain.
I mean,
and Northern
literally,
Ireland. Okay, yeah.
nobody understands this fully. I'm
No.
only about 80% sure I've got it right there, but
I have got a tea towel with it on, which is kind of like a map thing, and then there's rings drawn around it saying, yeah, this is GB, these are the British Isles, this is the UK.
it's like a really weird Venn diagram.
Exactly, exactly. So the recent expansion to the UK was to make sure that Northern Ireland doesn't think about seceding from the, not the Union. Yeah, the Union? No, yeah.
Kinda.
Yeah. So anyway, similarly, Scotland was talking about seceding from the Union. In July 2014, the Scottish referendum was up, and basically it was the idea that Scotland would become independent of Britain. So of England, independent, it would govern itself. So it wouldn't be governed remotely from Westminster. Even though there is a Scottish Parliament, the laws that they tend to have to enact are determined in Westminster, and they have to have representatives from a Scottish party in Westminster. So you vote in Westminster for representatives from Scotland. Same is true of Wales and Northern Ireland. And in July 2014, the independence referendum was up, and David Cameron was speaking to, well, I don't know who he was speaking to, really, the converted, I think. And he was talking about the fact that there's this, again, the same similar thing to Trump, there's this vocal group that were campaigning for yes to the referendum, and they were the people who were have always wanted to be independent and were vehement about it and campaigning strongly for it. Cameron, which was also his downfall in Brexit, was convinced that there was a silent majority.
We've had the noise. We've had the sound and fury. We've had lots of arguments. We've had, if you like, the noisy nationalists. It is now time to hear from the silent majority.
I love the way he cocks up. It is now time. It is not. It is nime. It is not nime. Yeah. So we've had the noisy nationalists. They do love alliteration. The noisy nationalists, and now we want the silent majority. But so, who are his silent majority? Is the question. If they're not the noisy nationalists, who are they? And at the time, Strathclyde University politics professor John Curtis believed that the Prime Minister, Cameron was the Prime Minister at the time, use of the phrase as an implicit recognition that no supporters are less likely to take part in a referendum campaign in comparison to the highly visible and passionate yes side. He said no supporters are much less active in terms of campaigning, going on the web and knocking on doors and so forth. They're silent, relatively speaking, in comparison to the yes side. And it's a bit like the Brexit vote, was the yes side are so passionate because they've probably believed in independence for the whole of their lives, whereas the no side probably wished for the referendum wasn't happening. and they might be less enthusiastic campaigners, but that's not to say they're less likely to vote.
Yeah, there's a thing here, because I think it comes with an implicit assumption that numbers are the most important thing. Not a completely unreasonable assumption given democracy, etc.
Yeah.
But I think there's a valid another way of looking at it, which is that if a slightly smaller number really, really care about one side and a larger number don't really care, aren't that bothered which way it goes, maybe the minority should get what they want because it matters more to them. If the others are like, I'm not really bothered. If a large group of people couldn't give a shit, does it matter what,
Does it matter what happens?
Yeah.
Yeah. They don't get to complain if they don't get what they want.
So these vocal minorities who do protesting and do campaigning and vote when we have a vote, and frankly, fucking disgustingly,
Yeah.
The entire electorate is a minority in almost every case.
Well, yeah,
Whenever we have a
yeah.
vote on anything,
Yeah, it's only
less than half
the
people
voting
get
minority.
involved.
Yeah.
Which is ridiculous. But yeah, the fact that most people don't give a shit means maybe we shouldn't care what they think. If they can't be bothered to make the slightest effort in expressing how they feel about something.
Yeah. Even if it's, not even vehemently opposing stuff, but sufficient to go and vote the other way. Yeah, I think the downside of that thought is
there's no downsides.
There's no downside. No, is that you'll get, which is what's currently happening in France, is that the incumbent Macron, who's kind of slightly centrist towards the left, probably. Is being troubled. Well, they've just had the first round of elections, and he was somewhat troubled by the fact that the right-wing candidate, Marine Le Pen, daughter of Jean-Marie Le Pen, who is the complete right-wing candidate, got a lot more of the vote than the Macron thought they would, and it is very close. So it's gone to a second round. So now
majority. But
not a majority, no.
The majority was still seeing through Le Pen and recognising that there is an important thing that they need to get out and vote. Like people.
Well, one hopes so in the second round, but having talked to some people, they were saying, well, the real socialists that I voted for, which again we got into conversations about Corbyn and Starmer, the real socialist, he's not going to get in. So am I going to hold my nose like we all had to last time round when we got Jean-Marie Le Pen out by holding our nose and voting for Chirac? Are they going to do that? But they're saying, well, I can't be bothered.
To which the answer is yes, to fucking do that.
Yeah,
because otherwise you get Marine Le Pen.
Exactly, yeah. And that's the problem. You see, if the silent majority can't be asked to vote, they deserve all they get. But
I'm liking the silent majority less and less as we go through this.
Yeah. Why are they ought to speak up a bit, for fuck's sake. Yeah, you can't just sit there and go, I can't be asked, and then complain about how things have turned out. Mm-hmm. And then so you get vocal minorities. You end up with things like Brexit. You end up with things like Erdogan getting in, and you get the people who are really active and who know full well, which is exactly what happened with Get Brexit Done and how Boris got in, because they just actively went out, and other people just went, oh, for fuck's sake, another election? We've had 5 in 3 years, or 3 in 5, or far too many in too short a time. And they just got fed up, and they knew full well that that's what they were doing. And that's why they had it on a rainy Thursday in December when it was dark at 4:00 in the afternoon, so nobody would go out to vote, knowing that the silent majority would just stay home. Of course, when it suits them, as in this case with Cameron, the silent majority needs geeing up to get them out. And in fact, what happened was in the referendum election in Scotland, the silent majority won. Well, not really. The active no voters did. And the Scottish National Party, who were in charge and running the campaign, their leader, Alex Salmond, resigned because of the failure of the referendum. Nicola Sturgeon was elected leader, and then she led the Scottish National Party through a landslide victory in the 2015 UK general election, winning 56 out of the 59 Scottish seats at Westminster. And in the 2016 Scottish Parliament election, whilst they lost their overall majority, it still remained the largest party. And then in 2019 United Kingdom general election, she led a party to another landslide victory. And in the Scottish Parliament election in 2021, on a manifesto promise to hold a second independence referendum, they won 64 of the 129 seats in the Scottish Parliament. And the SNP, so therefore, won a 4th consecutive election, and Sturgeon won a 3rd term for the first time in history. And what happened was that in the in that election, she defeated the Scottish Conservative leader Douglas Ross and the Scottish Liberal Democrat leader Willie Rennie by 64 votes. She got 31, so more than twice what Douglas Ross, the Tories, got, and the Liberal Democrat leader got 4. So, like Kevin Phillips Bong, no votes at all. So our second example is Douglas Ross, the same defeated Scottish Conservative leader at the 2022 Tory Party's conference, Scottish Tory Party conference, and he cited the same powerhouse of the silent majority to bolster his chance of election in 2026.
Scotland has been gripped by the dead hand of nationalism for the last 15 years. And look at what it's done to us. We've become divided against ourselves. Can anyone say that Scotland of 2022 is a better place than Scotland of 2007? The nation I grew up in was confident and outward-looking. Yet the nation my kids grew up in today is bitter and inward-facing. That isn't a record that any government should be proud of. We have become worse off, both economically and intellectually, because we are stuck with a government that won't take any responsibility. They say none of this is their fault.
So he's talking about the Scottish National Party there, but he's using the same language that's levelled against the Tory Party, the National Tory Party, not just the Scottish Tory Party. And it's also interesting that he goes on to say, the implication is in a minute, that the SNP is the vocal minority. They're the noisy nationalists. But Sturgeon got twice as many votes as he did, and in the previous election got 56 out of 59 seats in Westminster. That's not, the silent majority in that case with 3.
Yeah.
So, or 31 versus 64. So there is no powerhouse there, and it's not stagnated. You could tell that he's a conservative because basically he's harking back to the good old days when the Tories were in 2007. Thatcher still alive then? I think so. And the place isn't. And he said, my kids are growing up. That's Scottish for bitter. When he says better, But they're not. It's just that's his view of how things were when he grew up. Oh, it was much better when I grew up, when we had good old trustworthy Tories. And
yeah, it's quite rare to find someone who goes, "Oh, things were shit when I was young.
It was
much better now.
Terrible. It's much better now." Exactly. Yeah. Now that the other lot are in power and have and the SNP are not inward looking. What they are is, if anything, is, well, as they got swept into power with a massive majority, like an almost unanimous voting in, certainly in Westminster, their representative, it's almost the entirety of the, I think the other 3 seats were Tories. But so they aren't inward looking. They represent a good deal of Scottish thought and Scottish wishes, and particularly in 2016, the majority of Scotland voted to remain in the EU. And that's kind of fired up the second independence referendum because they're saying, we don't want to leave the EU because if we do this, it affects our jobs, it affects this, it affects all of that. So all of those things that Ross is saying have got worse since they've been in power are down to the fact that during the last 15 years, the Tories have been in Westminster in the last 15 years. So things have got worse, but they haven't got as worse in Scotland because they've done their utmost to put in local, national-based policies and continue to look to the EU. So, yeah. So anyway, So this is the second bit of his thing where he goes on to say, so he also blamed nationalism for fomenting division rather than the Tories' culture wars, shock doctrine policy of destabilising communal thought and encouraging active hate and social inequality. Just to note that. But how do we go about changing the status quo? How do we beat the SNP's massive majority. Well,
we need to take back Scotland from the SNP. There is a majority out there to take us forward. The same silent majority that said to Nicola Sturgeon no in 2014. And our goal must be to bring that majority together again to break the deadlock. We need the silent majority to rediscover its voice.
There you go. So, a point of fact, they didn't say no to Nicola Sturgeon. They said no to Alex Salmond. And ever since Nicola Sturgeon's been in, there's been a resounding yes. And his argument is, so we're going to take back, and can you recognise the thing? Let's take back Scotland, take back control of Scotland.
Make Scotland great again.
Yeah, exactly. You know, all that stuff, isn't it? Take it back from the SNP, take it back from the National Party that is promoting Scottish ideals. Let's take that back and they kind of make it into a Tory thing whereby we don't do any of those, societal health service, education, free university education, by the way, still in Scotland, access to, and the National Health in Scotland doing terribly well compared with, so that it's making the Tories look bad. So what they're saying is we need to appeal to the silent majority. So those people that only voted 3 people in Westminster, and those people that only voted 31 seats in Scotland, the ones that didn't do the voting, we've got to get them out. And glossing over the fact that the ones that didn't vote for them voted for Nicola and the SNP. Yeah. So, yeah. And so this is all despite the fact that the SNP won on the basis of a promise of a second referendum and the prospect as such of rejoining the EU. And in a way, it's kind of... he wants the people to say... The same people that said no to the referendum before, he wants them to say no again now. And actually what Scotland actively did was say no to Brexit. So the same it depends on your view, doesn't it, as to who is the silent majority. So all those people that he's kind of saying, just get out and fucking vote, will you? Forgetting the fact that they all got out and voted and they didn't vote Tory. That's the thing.
Get out and vote. No, not like that.
Not like that. Like this. Yeah. No. The people we want the people that aren't voting like that to get out and vote the way we want them to. Uh-huh. Yeah. And incidentally, this is the same Douglas Ross who said Boris should resign over Partygate, and was consequently called a lightweight by Jacob Rees-Mogg. And oddly, Ross seems to have changed his tune a month ago, saying now is not the time to replace Boris. And he withdrew his letter of no confidence. And there are now calls from the hitherto silent majority for himself to resign as a result of his U-turn.
That's the problem with asking the silent majority to speak up, because might not be okay with what they say.
Yeah, in which case they become the noisy nationalists.
Yeah,
don't they?
Absolutely.
Yeah, and dismissible.
Uh-huh.
Goodbye, logic, it's the end. He's come to shred the truth again. An evil vision of just up fucking left his stench while we were not looking. And the voters are immune to their disdain. Didn't vote Remain, 'cause they're wedded to the wild fallacies.
Simon and Garfunkel, of course, for their apt for this episode, Sound of Silence.
So in the Fallacy in the Wild, we like to talk about the Fallacy of the Week from a non-political perspective, but we are not going to be able to do that because, from what I've found, this is basically exclusively a political fallacy. I haven't really found any examples that are not, in some way at least, political.
Yeah.
I do recall when I was working at the BBFC, one of my fellow examiners told me that the progressive kind of movement of people thinking that it was okay to see, sex and violence and strong language and stuff at different categories was just a vocal minority. And actually, the majority of the country were kind of Daily Mail readers.
Wow.
Who think that that's all terrible.
Yeah.
And
wow.
I did point out that the Sun has a circulation significantly higher than the Daily Mail.
Yeah.
And those people seem all right with a bit of nudity.
Yeah. Yeah, but they're vocal. That's the vocal. That's not the silent majority. Yeah.
Uh-huh.
So
But beyond that real world example, our first example in this section is from Nixon, not the politician yet, but the 1995 Oliver Stone film starring Anthony Hopkins.
Cool. Yep.
And this is his speech at the 1968 Republican National Convention.
A new voice is being heard across America today. It is not the voice of the protesters or the shouters. It is the quiet voice of a majority of Americans who have been forgotten. The non-shouters, the non-demonstrators. They're the good people. They work hard and they save and they pay their taxes. Now, who are they? Let me tell you who they are. They're in this audience by the thousands. They are the white Americans and black Americans, Mexican Americans and Italian Americans. They're the great silent majority. And they have become angry, finally, angry not with hate, but angry, my friends, because they love America and they don't like what's happened to America these last 4 years.
That's a larger majority than Trump normally includes.
Yeah, absolutely. Actually, watching this film, it was weird, because this is 1995. I rewatched Citizen Kane as well recently, and they are both really weirdly prescient about a lot of Trump stuff. There's a lot of stuff that you can kind of really see. It feels like he watched these films and went, "Yeah, okay, that's being a politician,"
and made notes. Yeah. Wow.
Nixon talks a lot about the forgotten Americans, the forgotten people, and I'm going to give those people a voice and that kind of stuff. Now, this actually didn't quite happen at the Republican National Convention in '68.
Right.
Part of the speech he gives in the film is word for word what happened in '68, but this bit is kind of fabricated. But it's on the same kind of theme. He was talking about the forgotten Americans and about, that there are non-demonstrators as well as the people who are demonstrating currently against Vietnam. But actually, the time that Nixon used the phrase the silent majority, which was where it got its cachet from and why Trump said later, you're not allowed to say it anymore, because people associate it with Nixon.
Yeah.
Was in a televised address that he did to the American people in 1969, when he was basically trying to get people to give him their support about his plans for Vietnam. In the midst of a lot of people in the streets protesting against what he was trying to do and against the war.
So tonight, to you, the great silent majority of my fellow Americans, I ask for your support.
So he was saying that the protesters, the people who are against the war and against what I'm doing, they're the minority. They're essentially communists, they're leftists, they're troublemakers. And the silent majority of Americans, the rest of you, the ones who are currently not saying anything or doing anything.
Yeah.
I need your support. I need you, who clearly agree with me already, to step up and kind of go with me on what I'm trying to do.
And he's also saying, otherwise, if you don't, then I will link you with, the Black Panthers and John and Yoko and all the demonstrators and all that lot. You will be lumped in with those. And, so he's appealing just as Archie Bunker Trump does to the people that just with their buzz cut haircuts sitting on their lazy boy recliners going, look at those long haired, you can't tell whether they're boys or girls, and I can't hear the words, not like you used to be able to with Bing Crosby, all that kind of stuff. So they don't, that's the silent subtext of his silent majority thing, is to say otherwise, then you're just as bad as the long-haired hippies.
Yeah. So our second example comes from the Gilmore Girls, and this is an episode where It's the time for the annual spring fling in what's it called, Stars Hollow, the town where they live.
Yeah.
And Taylor, the kind of de facto mayor of the town, the kind of leader of the council, has spent the entire budget for the Spring Fling Festival on a hay bale maze because he wanted to have a hay bale maze.
Now, I am aware that a small but vocal minority of you have expressed concern about the progress of this year's Spring Fling Festival. I would like to take this time to assure you that everything is going as planned.
So yeah, it's going as he's planned it.
Yeah.
But yeah, basically everyone in town is usually involved in this festival. They have stalls, they sell lemonade or salty nuts or whatever, and Lorelei runs the inn and Luke runs the diner, and they all get business from this thing, and they've got tourists coming to the town specifically for this festival. And he's just taken the entire thing over and spent all the budget on one thing.
And then accusing all of them who's complaining as a small vocal minority. Yeah.
Exactly.
In a
yeah.
disparaging way.
So and while he doesn't invoke the silent majority directly, by suggesting that the people who are complaining are a small vocal minority, it implies that, and therefore he's got numbers on his side because it's only a minority who are complaining. Despite
Exactly.
that,
Yeah.
It's basically everyone.
Yeah. Well, I was looking up the derivation pre-Nixon, and turns out it was a euphemism for the dead.
Yeah.
From the 1800s. So it was kind of like, it was all of the people. They are the silent majority because there are. I'm not sure that it's true anymore. Some probably in the 1800s, there were more people dead than were alive.
The number that gets bandied about that I've heard is that there are more people alive now than have ever died.
Wow.
But I'm pretty sure that's not true.
No, that's right.
It's one of those things that just people say and think.
You just go, that's really cool, isn't it? Yeah, it's all bollocks. Yeah.
So we're gonna play fake news, folks. I love the game. It's a great game. I understand the game as well as anybody.
Yes, it's time for Fake News, the game where I read out 3 Trump quotes, 2 of which are real and 1 I made up, and Mark has to figure out which one is fake news.
Well, this week I could invoke the silent majority, but the silent majority only holds one more point than I do, because it's 43 out of 87. So the silent majority not doing that well. It's a bit like a Douglas Ross election in Scotland. They've only got one more point than I have. So, the silent majority, they're not all that cracked up to me.
Yeah. So our theme this week is actually these are clips from an answer that Trump gave on Hannity's show yesterday, actually, as we were recording this. And the question he was asked was, do you think that Joe Biden is compromised by China or Russia or Ukraine because of Hunter Biden's dealings with those countries?
Right. And the answer would be no. Well, he thinks, it's a kind of a softball.
I mean, Hannity was Hannity was absolutely. He in fact said in the question, he said, "Because I do."
Right.
So,
okay.
But Trump's answer, and to be fair, it was quite a rambling question. The question lasted more than a minute.
Right.
Trump's answer lasted several minutes. I don't think at any point he mentioned Biden at all.
Wow.
Or referred in any way back to the question.
Oh, okay, right.
It was
good. Now over to me. Yeah.
It really was. Yeah, it wasn't worth asking a question at all because this was just other stuff he said.
Right.
So
yeah, it's kind of like remember Sade in the 80s when she would sing an album's worth of songs. And then they would just go, right, okay, that's enough. And then they'd snip the tape and make an album. And then they'd just come back and then go, right, sing again. It's a bit like that with Trump. You could just dip in and out at any point. Just get him in a room in front of a microphone. And the answer would just keep burbling away. He's still doing it, even when we think he's silent.
Yeah, absolutely.
When they turn the mic down, he's still talking like
that's the thing. It's the audio text at Fox.
Yeah.
They just dip his bit while Hannity asks the question and then raise Trump's again.
Exactly,
Trump doesn't even know there's someone else there.
No,
he's just talking.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So, yeah, these are bits from what he said.
Okay.
Number 1. They suppress the vote, and they artificially suppress the vote, and probably illegally suppress the vote, and nobody wants to talk about it, but it's a very dangerous thing. Now what they do is they use prosecutors. Look, I've gone through in 5 years more investigations than Al Capone, Jesse James, and Billy the Kid put together. If I fly over a Democrat state in my aeroplane, I end up before a grand jury. It's a disgrace.
Wow. That's brilliant. Yeah, that is true. He did get more investigations than Al Capone, because there's like one for Al Capone, wasn't
Yeah, I think it was
there?
one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Not...
And I don't think anyone really investigated Jesse James and Billy the Kid so much as just
took them out and shot them, just got in a gunfight with them. Yeah. Yeah. You can tell where he's coming from. He thinks he's John Wayne. That's the thing.
Yeah. Well, but he does align himself with these kind of, gangsters.
Yeah,
and
there you go. Yeah,
criminals.
gangsters
So
and outlaws.
There is that.
Yeah. Okay.
Statement number 2. But based on past, I think probably nothing will happen. Look, we also had a chance, but Bill Barr, the Attorney General, didn't want to be impeached. They were vicious with him. They said, we're going to impeach you. They didn't even know why, but they were going to impeach Bill Barr. He didn't want to be impeached. How do you not get impeached? You sit back and relax and wait out for your term to end.
What? Okay. Great. And this is an answer about Hunter Biden's laptop. Okay. Right. Right. Yeah.
Statement number 3. I told him he needed to do the right thing. I said, I got impeached twice. It didn't do me any harm. In fact, if you remember, I went up in the polls by a lot. Maybe he should have tried to get impeached. Frankly, if Bill Barr had done his job and done what I hired him to do, then we wouldn't be in the mess we are now. And it is a mess. And now he writes his crummy book, which is full of lies, by the way.
What? By a lot. Yeah. Yeah. I hate the way he does that, when he will say something and then say it again, which kind of accelerates the truth and reaffirms it and appeals to his own authority. Because, somebody said, many people have said, I've heard one person say by a lot. Well, it was you just then. Right. And then I got impeached twice, didn't you? Okay. He didn't want to be impeached. How do you not get impeached? You sit back and relax. Wait for that. Really? Apart from the fact that, yeah. He
is the authority on not getting impeached.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. And sitting back and relaxing. Yeah. Okay. Well, they're all just ridiculously fictitious in their content, so it's difficult to pick one. It's deliberately fictitious. Okay, but I'm erring towards I got impeached twice. It didn't do me any harm, because that's a proper gym-sized joke. But the one based on past, I think probably nothing will happen, is very Trump, but it's all could be very well observed gymness. And the Al Capone just Billy the Kid. That's the bit that's making me worry about that one. Okay, I think I'm going to plump for the impeached twice. Didn't do me any harm.
Going with your gut
as the giveaway. Yeah, I get the sense now that that's the wrong thing to do, but I think I'm going for that. Yeah, number 3 is the one that you made.
Okay, so of the other 2, which are you more convinced by?
Number 2, just based on past, I think probably nothing will happen. No, I now know that you wrote that.
Number 2?
Yeah.
Real.
But based on past, I think probably nothing will happen. Look, we also had a chance, but Bill Barr, the Attorney General, didn't want to be impeached. They were vicious with him. They said, we're going to impeach him. They didn't even know why, but they were going to impeach Bill Barr. He didn't want to be impeached. How do you not get impeached? You just sit back and relax and wait out for your term to end.
How do you not get impeached?
Yeah.
All the best people are getting impeached.
Yeah. How do you not? Why? How did you miss on that?
Impeachment's too good for you.
Yeah. Yeah, they were vicious with him. They said, we're going to impeach you. They didn't even know why. You've kind of got to know why, haven't you? But they were going to do it. He didn't want it. He didn't want to be it. What kind of an attorney general is it that doesn't want to get impeached? You don't want an attorney general like that. You want somebody that really behaves in a way that is impeachable. Yeah. Like me, you just sit back and relax and wait your term to end. What the hell? And I love that opening sentence is brilliant, isn't it? Based on past, I think probably nothing will happen.
Nothing, but that wasn't out of context. There wasn't something that led into that made any sense with. Right. Nothing will happen about what? He wasn't talking about anything.
No. It's like when you watch stand-up comedians and they're going from one routine, one little bit, and then they get into the next bit. There's those kind of joining up bits that don't actually mean anything because they aren't funny in and of themselves. They're just working out, unless they've written it on the back of their hand, like Stuart Lee does in Big Marco. He's just put one word on the back of his hand. You know, they're kind of running around going, where do I go next? Where do I go next? And you get sentences like, but based on past, I think probably nothing will happen. And a funny thing happened on the way to the forum. Yeah. That's just so good. He kind of interrupts himself. There are 3 or 4, my name is Legion for we are many. There's 3 or 4 of him talking in there, running around, picking up cue cards. Wow.
So you also think number one is real?
Yeah.
And number 1
is
real.
They suppressed the vote, and they artificially suppressed the vote, and probably illegally suppressed the vote, and nobody wants to talk about it. But it's a very dangerous thing. And now what they do is they use prosecutors. Look, I've gone through in 5 years more investigations than Al Capone, Jesse James, and Billy the Kid put together. If I fly over a Democrat state in my airplane, I end up before a grand jury. It's a disgrace.
Just a reminder, this was a question about Hunter Biden's laptop.
Right. And who's suppressing the vote and artificially suppressing the vote and probably illegally suppressing the vote? The Republicans. Preventing people from voting legally by any means necessary. Because they know they will never get in office again if everybody has a free and fair vote. So that's what they do. And so it goes from suppress the vote to, it's not Hunter Biden laptop. Yeah, they suppress the vote, and then he goes from there to himself. That's what happens. That's what happens.
Yeah, it's like, I don't want to talk about someone else. I want to talk about me.
Yeah, yeah. That's enough about you. Let's talk about
what you think about me.
Yeah. And even Hannity can't hold the laugh in after Al Capone, Jesse James, and Billy the Kid put together. It's a lame, lazy gag. Mm-hmm. And it's meaningless beyond, when you look at it, you go, well, that's just not funny because it doesn't make sense.
That's why you didn't fall for that one and think that I'd made that up, because I would have written a better gag than that. So
you would, yeah. Which in fact you did. Oh, you did, and I spotted it. Yay! Yeah. If he'd have said I got impeached twice, it didn't do me any harm, that would be brilliant. There's got to be a way of editing him to say that.
He did say that he went up in the polls after he got impeached.
No.
But that was the only bit of that I took from what he really said.
And then he writes his crime book, which is full of lies, by the way. Yeah. I mean, they're just brilliantly observed asides. It's the way his entire kind of speech pattern. It's like what? It's not even skin deep. It's like 1 micron deep, isn't it? There's no depth to what he's saying. He's kind of. He sounds like he knows a lot of stuff, but he knows nothing. People think I know fuck nothing, but I know fuck all. Jesus Christ!
Which means that you got that right, and so you're back up to 50%.
Oh right!
I think you have been above 50%, but briefly.
Yeah.
But now you're back
when
up
I was
there.
the vocal majority. Yeah. Cool. Oh, righty.
So yeah, you're not now a vocal minority. You're a vocal exactly equal with the people who have got the same different ones right, or something like that.
Yeah. Yes, but they're still wrong.
Yes. So it's time for the part of the show that this week at least is called Hunter Biden's laptop is not a logical fallacy. We did talk about Hunter Biden's laptop
So
before.
unlike Trump, we're going to talk about it, yeah.
We
we
talked at length about the whole thing about it being left
Crazy
in
motherfucker
this computer repair shop in Delaware, and this registered blind guy who thought maybe it was Hunter Biden who dropped it off. Don't know. Had it for a while and then decided to look at the stuff on it and then decided to send it to Rudy Giuliani. That was episode 61, so by all means go back and listen to that if you think that you would like to hear more about our views on John Paul Mac Isaac, I think is the guy's name, and
that's right. Yeah.
Whether we think what he did with the laptop was
he
good.
was never born to work on PCs with a name like that, was he?
But the reason we're talking about it again is because both the New York Times and the Washington Post have recently published articles in which they have indicated that some of the material that is purportedly from the laptop that might have been Biden's that was left at a Delaware PC repair shop and completely ignored with a registered blind man and was never picked up. Some of those that material has been verified as real emails.
That's as far as it goes.
The right wing has spent the last 2 weeks going, see, we said it was all real. Now the Washington Post and the New York Times are admitting that they were lying all that time and everything was real and all of the things we've been saying about Hunter Biden are real and it's all true and they've admitted it's verified. They've looked at it and they agree.
And is there then an asterisk at the end of the thing and then it goes down to the bottom? Some of these
weirdly
statements won't hold up under scrutiny.
They are just pretending that the two biggest investigative reporting newspapers in the US have now admitted that Hunter Biden's laptop and all the extremely damning material that was on there, which, as we said in episode 61, barely pointed to anything even slightly kind of, not even illegal, nothing even slightly immoral or problematic in any way.
Or even possibly not very good business practice.
Yeah. There was
not even as good, strong as
barely
that.
anything on.
Not likely
they've said
to make a lot of
that's
money
all real.
as far as it went.
So, so I thought we'd just have a look at the Washington Post's article about it
to see what they actually found.
Because to be fair to the right wing, as you know, I always like to
do. Yes.
Steal bot the other side and give them the best version of events. The Washington Post article is fucking shit. It is not well written. I mean, it's titled, "Here's How the Post Analysed Hunter Biden's Laptop." They did not analyse Hunter Biden's laptop. So there's problem number one.
Yeah. It's a kind of it's online clickbait headlines, isn't it? I mean, you just go down and then you get one sentence or one paragraph, and then basically the rest of the paragraphs repeat the first paragraph.
Again, since I'm in the kind of steel botting spirit, the people who wrote the article, in many cases in newspapers and media, generally don't necessarily write the headline. The headlines tend to be added on by sub-editors, and they are generally involved in basically just trying to get eyes to the article. So it's possible that Craig Timberg, Matt Weiser, and Tom Hamburger, who are the people who wrote this article, did not write the headline, "Here's How the Post Analysed Hunter Biden's Laptop."
Right.
But somebody did, and they were wrong.
Yeah. And the article goes to great lengths to show that they didn't.
It doesn't. The article doesn't, however, start off by saying, as we've been saying for ages, there's no way of knowing whether any of the stuff that people have been saying is on Hunter Biden's laptop is actually Hunter Biden's.
On Hunter Biden, yeah, or even there.
However, here are some things we have found out. That's how it should have started, is saying, as has been reported by all reputable news sources, all of the stuff the right wing is saying is bullshit. However, here's some stuff we found out. But no, they enter into it.
Just to prove how bullshitty it is. Yeah.
Basically, the Washington Post were given a portable hard drive by Republican activist Jack Maxey, who used to work for Steve Bannon. He used to work on Steve Bannon's War Room podcast. And so he gave the Post a hard drive, which he says contains the contents of the hard drive that John Paul Mac Isaac copied off the original laptop, which John Paul Mac Isaac claims was Hunter Biden's. So this is at very least a copy of a copy of a copy of something which we don't know the veracity of at all.
So it's rock solid provenance of the entire thing. Yeah. So... So the Washington Post of old would have just dismissed it at that point, going, "Okay, is this the brother of the girlfriend who used to walk the dog of the neighbour's aunt?" Yeah.
But what they did instead was they got two data experts to investigate all of the information, all of the data on this hard drive, not laptop. Which was 217 gigabytes of data.
Right.
And they got them to look at it and say, okay, what can you tell us about this data? And specifically, in terms of the emails on it, which there were 129,000 emails on this portable hard drive, can you verify, basically, that these emails were sent by the people who they say they were sent by and that they haven't been altered since?
Right. Yeah.
And so that's the extent of what we can get from this analysis. The emails, those 129,000 emails, took up 4.3 gigabytes of data on this portable hard drive out of the 217 gigabytes that was there.
Wow. What's the rest of it then?
The rest is documents, videos, pictures, etc., which could have been on there, could have been added at any point, could have been put on there from any source, could have been hacked from multiple places and added to this hard drive. We don't know. The narrative at the time from the left was that this is all part of a Russian disinformation campaign immediately prior to the election to implicate Hunter in some stuff. They did a fucking awful job of that because even the stuff that's on there isn't particularly damning.
Yeah.
But the vast majority, like literally 95%. That's not hyperbole. 5% of the content of this hard drive is emails.
Are some emails. Yeah.
Of that 5%, the Post's data experts were able to verify, and I'll get to what verify means. 20% of those emails.
5%.
Yeah.
Right.
Around 22,000 of the 129,000 emails. So literally around 1% of the data contained on this portable hard drive has been, quotes, verified.
Right.
So when Fox and OAN and others are saying the New York Times and Washington Post are admitting that it's all true, what they're saying is what we found is 1% of it we can say probably didn't directly come from Russia.
Right. Yeah. Or probably wasn't put on there afterwards by a right-wing activist that used to work for Steve Bannon.
But a non-zero amount was definitely put on there afterwards, and we'll come to that.
Oh, what?
Yeah.
Okay. Right. So this stuff that they verified that the right thinks it's all true, all the stuff we've been saying, the verification of it, how did they verify it, and what's their definition of verify?
So what they did was they looked at what's called cryptographic signatures.
Right.
I mean, you probably might be better at explaining what a cryptographic signature is than me. I don't know.
Well, I'm saying like I knew what I meant. It's basically it's about it's just that there's a trail that the data leaves in the indices of drives, I would imagine.
Yeah, specifically for emails, it's about what happens to the data when it's sent from a particular place. There's various ways where that data is converted into formats, which leaves trails which you can kind of go back and check and see where
it went.
That has come from the person it says it's come from, and whether some changes have been made to that email in the process, after the fact, or if it's kind of arrived as it was sent.
It's the kind of stuff you see when you get a returned mail and it's saying this mail was unable to be delivered. If you look at the body of that message, you will see that
used to be Mailer Demon
pathway
that would do
there you
stuff.
go. Yeah, that you can see where it's been, how it got there, where it went, who it's come from, at what point did it get bounced, and where did it get bounced from, and how did it get back to you. All of that stuff is there. Blimey, can you imagine doing that for 22,000 emails?
So, yeah, that's essentially what they did. And based on that, they reckon, although there's more to it than this, they have verified the cryptographic signatures of 22,000 of the emails.
Right.
So that what they can say about those ones is they did come from who they say they came from, and they haven't been altered since.
Right.
For the rest of the data, the security experts who examined the data for the post, according to this article, could not come to definitive conclusions about the contents as a whole, including whether all of it originated from a single computer or whether it could have been assembled from files from multiple computers and put on the portable hard drive. Part of the claim of where this data comes from is that John Paul MacIsaac, when he was recovering data from the MacBook that was supposedly left by someone who might have been Hunter Biden, this was in April of 2019, the problem with this particular Mac, I think they said it was water damaged at the time, was that it would shut down kind of intermittently. And so in copying the data off, he couldn't copy it all off in one. He couldn't clone the hard drive. He couldn't, I don't know why he couldn't remove the hard drive. That hasn't gone into, but he couldn't, for whatever reason, get the data off in one go.
Being a Mac engineer,
you'd think,
or a Mac repairer guy, you'd kind of go, oh, well, I'll just plug it into a different power supply, or
but no, what he was doing was recovering the data, and so he would copy off some files until it shut down. Then he would start it up again, check what files had copied over, and then start copying others over until it shut down again.
Right.
So he was doing it all in batches. So it's not surprising that you can't necessarily tell whether this is all data from one source or whether it has, been added from multiple sources, some of which may have been Russian, to this to this portable hard drive.
Yeah. Okay.
He then, at some point in July of 2019, gave the laptop, the MacBook, that, as far as we know, could have been Hunter Biden's possibly, to the FBI, but kept a copy of the hard drive for reasons that are unclear.
Well, because he spent so much time copying and then verifying and then recopying. Why he didn't just verify them prior to switching it on again and just going, okay, well, what was the last file? I'll just go to there and then start from there.
Yeah.
Because you've only got limited time, because it's just going to warm up and go down
He
again.
said at the time that he was happy to see the MacBook go to the FBI in July of 2019 because because he was afraid of having it in his possession, that he may kind of come under some attack of some kind, but at the same time that he was afraid of having this data in his possession and happy to see it go to the FBI, he kept a copy of it in case, quotes, in case he was ever thrown under the bus as a result of what he knew. So he was like, I don't want this in my shop, but I'll just keep a copy.
Get it out. Yeah, I'll just
in case.
Just in case that I go missing.
Yeah.
Because that wouldn't be doubly dangerous, because the people that are out to get the laptop of you and would stop at nothing are not going to suspect that you, as a Mac engineer, would have made a copy of that.
And then so December of that year, 2019, that was when he gave it to Giuliani.
The drive.
Yeah. The drive, that he claimed was not a clone, but made up of stuff that was from Hunter Biden's laptop.
Yeah.
Imagine throughout this entire thing, I'm doing air quotes. When I say Hunter Biden's laptop, I'm always doing air quotes.
Yeah, I can hear you. You're getting RSI. You want to be careful.
Now, the Washington Post and the New York Times requested copies from Giuliani because Giuliani gave it to the New York Post, and the Post wrote about it at the time. Washington Post and New York Times requested copies. Giuliani said no. They didn't give him copies. Jack Maxey, the Republican activist who worked for Steve Bannon, supposedly got this copy from Giuliani and gave it, for reasons that are unclear, to the Washington Post a year or so later.
Right.
So again, this is a copy from someone who claims he's got this copy from someone who got a copy from someone who made a copy of a copy that he copied from Hunter Biden's laptop.
Hunter Biden's laptop.
In quotes.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. Yes, we just have to do it in Dr. Evil's voice. Hunter Biden.
Yeah, and that is what is being verified here.
Right. Right.
The two experts that the Post got are Matt Green, a Johns Hopkins University security researcher who specialises in cryptography, and Jake Williams, a forensic expert and former NSA operative who once hacked the computers of foreign adversaries. It doesn't say whether that was part of his job or just something he...
Or he just did that. He did that, and that's why they employed him. Yeah.
So they looked at all of the data. They found that there were nearly 22,000 emails that carried cryptographic signatures that could be verified using technology that would be difficult for even the most sophisticated hackers to fake. Such signatures are a way for the company that handles the email, in the case of most of these, Google was either the source, be it Gmail, or the process through which it was sent, for around 16,000 of these 22,000 emails.
Right.
And Google's cryptographic signature process is kind of gold standard in the industry. It's really difficult to get into and fake. So it's the way that it handles the email to provide proof the message came from a verified account and has not been altered in some way. Alterations made to an email after it has been sent cause the cryptographic signatures to become unverifiable, says this article.
Right.
So, like 107,000 of the emails, then, because if only 22,000 of them had verifiable cryptographic signatures, the others had the kind of unverifiable signatures you get when you alter something.
When you fiddle about with the signature, or exactly, you're going to have to get in there and do something with it in order to make it look like it's come from somewhere that it hasn't. For it to then be unverifiable as a proper signature.
So, of the 22,000, it says many were routine messages such as political newsletters, fundraising appeals, hotel receipts, product ads, so junk mail, news alerts, real estate listings, and notifications related to Hunter Biden's daughter's schools or sports teams. There was also a large number of bank notifications, with about 1,200 emails from Wells Fargo alone. So of the 22,000, more than 1,000 were from Wells Fargo, and many were essentially just kind of your standard emails that you get all the time.
Did it say over what period the emails were received?
They covered a period from 2009 to 2019.
Oh, okay. So, like, bloody hell, 10 years of, if you get one a month from Wells Fargo, that'll be 1,200.
The whole time that Biden was vice president, because he was vice president from 2009 to 2017, and during the time that Hunter Biden was on the board of Burisma, all of that stuff. So these were a lot of emails. In fact, it specifically mentions that there were emails from Burisma. They were verified that they did come indeed from Burisma. Again, it says the Post's review of these emails found that most were routine communications that provided little new insight into Hunter Biden's work for the company. One thing about Burisma, incidentally, is that Hunter Biden is essentially a corporate lawyer. He has a law degree. He is a lawyer for businesses. And a lot has been made about the fact that he sat on the board of this company and doesn't know anything about oil and gas, had no experience in oil and gas and energy.
Oh, that's right.
I
Yeah, that was Trump's argument, wasn't it?
I don't think that's very common for lawyers to have experience necessarily in the industry.
Oil and gas.
They're doing contract law work and that kind of stuff. They're doing law.
They have experience
about
with law.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes, about work being contracted, and whether it's legally binding or yes.
So while I am absolutely sure that the company thought, he's the vice president's kid, that would be an awesome thing to have him on our board.
Yeah, a feather in our cap. Yes.
I don't think it's weird to hire a lawyer, to have a lawyer on your executive board, because there's going to be stuff that comes up if none of the other board members are lawyers, which I don't think they were on Burisma. That could be a useful extra.
Yes, exactly.
Point of view.
You want a lawyer to kind of say, actually, I think this might get us into legal hot water. We ought not to enter into that contract in that kind of a way, or that's leaving us open to abuse and possible, legal ramifications. Unless you think about that, it would be very useful to have it. It's like having a, somebody that's an accountant, on the. Just to keep an eye on things.
So, most were routine communications. And then it goes into some detail kind of about the laptop's journey, which, again, laptop really should be in quotes, because all they've got is a hard drive. So, but then we go into a bit more detail about what the experts found. And one of the things, in fact, it's titled, this section, What the Experts Found.
Oh, right. Yeah.
It says, in their examinations, Green and Williams found evidence that people other than Hunter Biden had accessed the drive and written files to it both before and after the initial stories in the New York Post, and long after the laptop itself had been turned over to the FBI.
Whoa.
So this hard drive...
So this hard drive that is a copy of a copy of a copy of the data contained on Hunter Biden's laptop.
Yeah, that was given to the FBI in April of 2019.
Yeah, has had stuff added to it, so it's no longer, if we're to have believed that it was a copy, it's no longer got the same data on it than the from whence it was copied.
Yeah, in my opinion, that would have been a great way to start this article.
Yes. Yes, exactly, yeah. Hunter Biden's laptop, the copy that we're all getting het up about, people have put stuff on there.
Yeah, we can verify
handed over to the
files
FBI.
and folders have been added, even since it was handed to the FBI.
They don't do themselves any favour. If anything, the right knows how to write headlines.
Yeah.
They just go, it's all true. Washington Post and New York Times verify what we've said all along. That's as far as people will read. But the left, we're very nuanced.
I agree. Yeah. So Matt Green compared the portable drive he received from the Post to a crime scene in which detectives arrived to find Big Mac wrappers carelessly left behind by police officers who were there before them, contaminating the evidence.
Brilliant. That's exactly right, isn't it?
Yeah.
They just kind of go there. They snap the "Do Not Cross" tape, wander in their shoes, sit on the armchair, put the feet up on the dead body, and eat a Big Mac.
Yeah, and the other expert, Jake Williams, said, from a forensic standpoint, it's a disaster. So
there's the headline.
Yeah, that's absolutely.
It's a disaster. Yeah.
They also note that even if you can verify that emails came from a particular account and haven't been altered, one thing you can't do with you doing that is check that account wasn't hacked.
Right.
So there is still a possibility, even with the ones that they verified, that the accounts that sent those emails had been hacked, or that you don't know that they was actually sent from the person who says that it was sent. So, I mean, all of this becomes pointless. But what they did say is the expert said that the analysis was made more difficult because the data had been handled repeatedly in a manner that deleted logs and other files that forensic experts use to establish a file's authenticity.
Wow.
Wonder why that happened.
Yeah.
No evidence of tampering was discovered, which you might think, normally Fox would just stop there. No evidence of tampering was discovered. Bill Barr would stop there.
Yeah. Yeah.
But several key pieces of evidence useful in discovering tampering were not available. So the stuff that they would normally use to see whether it was tampered was missing or tampered with.
Wow. That's like, okay, so how are we going to get into this? How are we going to stop people getting in the building? Well, we'll take the doors off. Then they won't be able to get in. Yeah, why? Well,
you need a door, don't you?
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. You need a door. Yeah.
Yeah.
Brilliant.
So,
So not only was it, we couldn't tell it was tampered with.
We couldn't tell it was tampered with because the stuff we would normally use to tell it was tampered with wasn't there.
Had been tampered with. Yeah. You saw it. Yeah. I'm just any minute now. Berkman and Wall's names are going to turn up, aren't they?
Yeah.
Jacob Wall is going to go. He'll pop up like what's his name, Nedry on Jurassic Park, going like that. Yeah.
So, of the two experts, Matt Green, working with two graduate students, verified 1,828 emails, which is less than 2% of all of the emails.
Yeah.
But struggled with others that had technical flaws they could not resolve. The most common problems, he said, resulted from alterations caused when the MacBook's mail handling software downloaded files with attachments in a way that made cryptographic verification of those messages difficult. Jake Williams, verified a larger number of emails, nearly 22,000, which included almost all of the ones that Green had verified, after overcoming that problem by using software to correct alterations in the files. So there was stuff missing, essentially.
Yeah.
And Jake Williams inserted frog DNA to deal with the problem of the missing data.
Yeah. And now we've got
it's hard
far
to say
more copies of the disc than we ever thought was possible.
Maybe that is completely legitimate. It sounds a bit dodgy, but maybe that's a completely legitimate way of doing it. Even if it is, that's still only 22,000. Of those 22,000, all of them are incoming emails. There is not a single verifiable email from Hunter Biden to anyone else
going out saying, do this for us, and we'll do you a favour.
Basically, because cryptographic signatures are only on incoming emails, because it gets applied when you send it, essentially.
Yeah.
So if you wrote it and send it, it doesn't go into your sent folder with one. It just, it happens in the process of going through the internet and getting to somewhere.
Yeah.
So what we can't do is say any of the things that people have said Hunter said to anyone ever based on this data is true.
Yeah.
We can't claim that. We can say, for example, that one of the guys at Burisma who sent him an email saying, thanks for inviting me to DC and giving me an opportunity to meet your father and spent some time together in 2015, is a real email that really came from that person, or from that person's email account at least. That is about the most damning thing.
That's it. Yeah, so it actually came from the suspect, but what he sent was, thanks very much, nice to meet him, thanks for a lovely day. That you'd need to be a QAnon-sized cryptographer to make that into something, or a member of the right wing. Yeah, the Republican Party.
So,
but it's just to compare this with the actual verifiable recordings of various members of the Trump family talking to various members of the Russian Politburo about favors that could be done to assist in their electoral.
Stuff that we've got verified from multiple sources.
Not least one of the Trump kids. In fact, verifiable sources by the American investigative authorities. Yes.
So emails like the one which referred to Joe as the big guy and claimed, that you should hold back 20% of this business deal for the big guy or something like that.
Right.
I mean, we dealt with that again in episode 61. But that cannot be verified as a real email that was properly received or sent, or who it was written by. That's one of the things that can't. Among the other things that can't be verified are 3 new folders which were written onto the laptop months after the laptop was taken into FBI custody. I say laptop, on the hard drive. These folders are on the hard drive.
Yeah. This is the copy of the copy.
This is the copy of the hard drive, yeah.
So not the one that's in the FBI's possession.
No. This is the one that
the right-wing activists handed on from...
At the very least, from the Trump supporter who runs a Mac repair shop in Delaware, and Giuliani and Jack Maxey. We know that it's at least been in those 3 people's custody.
There's the cryptographic path. Yeah, that's all you need to know, really, isn't it?
And we know that this, in quotes, laptop was dropped off in April 2019.
Yeah.
After August 2020, 3 new folders were created on the drive, dated September 1st and September 2nd, 2020.
Yeah.
They bore the name Desktop Documents, Biden Burisma, and Hunter Burisma Documents. Also, Williams found records on the drive that indicated someone may have accessed the drive from a West Coast location in October 2020, a week after the New York Post stories first appeared. And over the next few days in October 2020, somebody created 3 additional folders on the drive titled Mail, Salacious Pics Package, and Big Guy File.
That's what, it's like Family Guy, deciding to let's see if we can incriminate somebody. So what would that was done by people that when you watch a movie and you go so how do we infect the super mainframe with a virus? We just type upload virus.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then puts the on-screen clock on. So you get the jeopardy as it's going, oh my God, it's not, has it done it yet? No, quick, they're running, they're coming at the door, quick, hurry up. Yeah.
So what we know from this article is that less than 1% of the content of the hard drive that might possibly be a copy, that might possibly be a copy, that might possibly be a copy, that might possibly be a copy of a laptop that might possibly be Hunter Biden's.
Yeah, as witnessed by registered blind man.
As witnessed by a registered blind man. Might be, at least from the people they claim they were from.
Right.
And the majority of those are junk mail.
Yeah.
And meanwhile, multiple people have added files and folders since the laptop was seized by the authorities.
Yeah.
And definitely hadn't been in Hunter Biden's hands for
he dropped it off at
well
the
over
door.
a year.
Yeah.
So that is the proof that the right wing have been waiting for, that it's all true.
It's all true, and the Washington Post ought to apologise.
Yeah, they finally admitted it.
Yeah. Yes. No wonder they're just doing appeal to vehemence in shouting those headlines. Because when you look at the little asterisk and it says at the end, some of these statements may not be true. Turns out, pretty much all of them. Yeah. And finally, some things we really don't have time to talk about.
Since Fox is famously fair and balanced, they probably took regular breaks from talking about Hunter Biden's laptop to cover the latest scandal involving Trump's son-in-law and cheap waxwork of Joseph Gordon-Levitt, Jared Kushner. What's that? They mentioned Hunter 68 times on Monday and Jared 0? Okay, yeah, that tracks. In which case, the Fox viewers among you will not have heard that within 6 months of leaving the White House, Kushner started up a private equity firm called Affinity Partners and approached Saudi Prince Mohammed bin Salman for investment. But you don't get to be as absurdly rich as bin Salman is without doing your due diligence. So naturally, the investment opportunity was screened by a panel of experts. Every single member of the panel recommended against investing with Kushner, citing objections that included, quote, the inexperience of the Affinity Fund management, due diligence on the fledgling firm's operations that found them, quote, unsatisfactory in all aspects, a proposed asset management fee that's, quote, seems excessive, and this is the best part, quote, public relations risks from Mr. Kushner's prior role as a senior advisor to former President Trump. Yes, one of the main objections to investing in the firm was that the association with Trump would make the human rights abusing, dissident, torturing, journalist, murdering prince look bad.
Yeah.
MBS clearly took this advice very seriously and immediately invested $2 billion in Kushner's company. But, you know, Hunter might have mentioned his dad in an email, so that's basically the same.
Pretty much. For $2,500, you can vote for Fauci's inevitable conviction as part of a mock grand jury convened by an Elvis impersonator and hobnob with VIPs. Is the verbatim byline from the Daily Beast. Yes, folks, it's a bit like those high school debating society mock whatevers where one side will propose the notion, this house believes Darwin invented dinosaurs, or we should go back and crucify Barabbas. On a sliding scale from $25 to $2,500, free t-shirt included, you can join the motley group of far-right anti-vaxxer conspirates, America's grand jury, to not actually put to trial one Anthony Fauci, but rather vote to see if he should be indicted. The primarily money-making organisation, notwithstanding the costs of t-shirt printing and live streaming and hosting and shindig at which expensive tickets get you rubbing shoulders with other high-profile crazies, has a website which is rather reluctant to point out in small print that it won't actually be able to indict Fauci. But hey, no point ruining a good party. What's it all for? Well, in a witch finder general kind of way, I guess it's finding someone to blame for the state of one's own ignorance, stupidity and denial of the existence of something outside of one's power, in this case COVID. And with the lack of a troller-in-chief in the White House or any new Q posts, if you're going to be needlessly nasty to someone, might as well make some dough in the process.
Okay, what the fuck is going on in Georgia? Democratic Senator Raphael Warnock, who won a special election last year and is now running for a full term, is currently trailing in the polls to Republican candidate Herschel Walker. Warnock is a Baptist pastor who led services at Martin Luther King's old church, whereas Walker is a self-confessed domestic abuser who claims he's played Russian roulette more than 6 times in his life because he just loves to compete. In Walker's favour, he graduated from the University of Georgia in the top 1% of his class, and since retiring from football in 1997, he's been a very successful businessman. And as of 2020, he ran the largest minority-owned upholstery and apparel firm in the US, and the largest minority-owned food company in the US, and he owns 3 poultry processing plants in Arkansas. His companies employ well over 1,000 people and bring in an annual revenue of $70 to $80 million. Except none of that is true. You see, Walker, despite having been hit in the head a lot when he was a running back for the Cowboys and the Vikings, has noticed that if you're a Republican, you can just say shit and none of your voters will ever care whether it's true or not. Not only did he not graduate in the top 1% of his class at the University of Georgia, he didn't graduate at all. The upholstery firm he claims he runs and has previously claimed he started dissolved last year after being run for 5 generations by the same family. Not Walker's family, by the way. When his food company applied for a PPP loan last year, they only had 8 employees instead of the 800 he's previously claimed. And when questioned in a deposition about his ownership of the 3 poultry plants, he said, "I don't mean to speak of own in a technical sense, because he doesn't own them. They're owned by a company he does business with." And according to another deposition obtained by the Daily Beast, the combined net income of all his businesses between 2009 and 2017 was $14 million. Not per year, in total. That's 2% of how much he claimed. It's not often we're on the same side as a Baptist pastor, but come on, people, vote for Warnock.
As Kermit once said, it's not easy being green. And even Danny Kaye reminded us in song of the problems of dismissing someone because of their looks. Well, if it's not enough to ban books about having a broken butt, now author Jason Tharp has reported that a school principal in Columbus, Ohio, told him he wasn't allowed to read his book, It's Okay to Be a Unicorn, to kids anymore, and that children's artwork they'd done subsequently had to be removed from display. Tharp was also told he could no longer read his other book, It's Okay to Smell Good, about being a skunk. presumably colourful, mainly red and white, I imagine, right-wing alternative titles, including "It's okay to determine what kids read based on your paranoid, warped, misogynistic views of something that might be construed by a paranoid, misogynistic, extremist, anti-LGBTQ plus equality bigot as promoting the rights of people / unicorns that you feel, because America, that they ought not to be able to have, despite the Declaration of Independence saying otherwise, are too big to fit on the shelves." Probably not the author of that title, but interim district school superintendent Jeremy Froelich told WBNS that officials just wanted to make sure that we vetted the book, and claimed that only a single parent had complained. So, no appeal to the silent majority there then. I wonder if that single complainant was a funder / candidate / influential on the board of governors and potential vetter of the book. Whoever it is, he should heed the words of Danny Kaye and get out of town.
It's worth mentioning as well that It's Okay to Be a Unicorn has nothing to do with LGBTQ issues at all.
No.
It's about a unicorn who tries to fit in by pretending he's a horse. And it's just the fact that it's kind of got rainbow colours on the cover that made some idiot think, oh, it must be about gay stuff.
One idiot.
Yeah, one idiot thought that must be about gay stuff, so I'm going to complain. Fucking hell. Okay, what the actual fuck is going on in Texas? Governor Greg Abbott has noticed that as a Republican governor, it doesn't matter if the things you do actively harm your own voters, so long as you get a bit of publicity for whatever fucked up thing you're doing. Last week, he announced that since Biden's border policy was so terrible, he would charter buses to transport hordes of illegal immigrants to the steps of the Capitol in D.C. so that Biden has to deal with them instead. He kind of followed through this week, as a bus carrying a horde of about 30 people arrived outside the offices of Fox News in DC. On interviewing some of them, CNN reported that having started their immigration proceedings, they'd been offered a voluntary bus ride to DC, where they would be able to continue the process. Usually, charities and NGOs help immigrants to get settled in different areas of the US, but Abbott decided to spend taxpayer money instead, so he could pretend he was sticking it to Biden. Never one to rest on his xenophobic laurels, Abbott also decided to exacerbate the supply chain and inflation problems for Texans by requiring all commercial trucks coming across the border into Texas to be inspected by border security. This has caused massive tailbacks and delays, with food rotting in trucks bound for stores in Texas and around the US. They haven't actually found any illegal immigrants or drugs because it was never really about that. It was about making problems in his own state worse so he can blame them on Biden.
His alliterative name being the only thing that makes him interesting, Mark Meadows, Trump's former chief of staff and major yammerer about how the 2020 election was stolen because of widespread voter fraud, has done what we love to hear about on this show oh so very much. Investigations into voter irregularities have revealed actual voter fraud by one Mark Meadows. Macon County Board of Elections Director Melania Tybalt said, "What I found was that Meadows was registered to vote in Macon County and also registered in the state of Virginia, where he voted in the 2021 election. The last election he voted in was in Macon County in 2020. True to his trailer trash form, perhaps, Meadows was registered in Macon County to an abandoned trailer. The former owner of the trailer said Meadows never visited the property despite being registered there. Well, he isn't any longer. Meadows' registration in Macon County was removed on April 11th. And all I can say from the point of view of my legal training from America's grand jury is ha 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 ha. And I don't think you can vote from jail either when it comes to it, Eminem."
Okay, people, what the actual motherfucking fuck is happening in Tennessee? It's like the entire Tennessee GOP saw Marsha Blackburn get a little bit of press for being a performative transphobe at KBJ's confirmation hearing and said, "Hold my fucking beer." Firstly, it seems that lawmakers in the state were only half listening to Fox News' regular foaming at the mouth about paedophilia and weren't totally sure if they came down for or against, so they introduced a bill which would, among other things, eliminate the lower age limit for marriage. Shockingly, the bill wasn't introduced by Tennessee Congressman John Rose, who met his wife when he was 42 and she was 17, but maybe it's in his honour. You might think legalising child marriage is tough to compete with, but leave it to State Senator Frank Nicely. While supporting a bill to fine people experiencing homelessness for begging or camping near a highway, Nicely had this bit of advice for the homeless community.
Speaker, I haven't given you all a history lesson in a while, and I want to give you a little history on homelessness. 1910, Hitler decided to live on the streets for a while. So for 2 years, Hitler lived on the streets and practiced his oratory and his body language and how to connect with masses, and then went on to lead a life that got him in the history books. So a lot of these people, it's not a dead end. They can come out of these homeless camps and have a productive life.
Fuck me. If you apply yourself, you could end up as successful as Hitler. Marsha made the news again for a tweet saying, Tennesseans want a wall on our southern border. And after the past week, I think a lot of people from Alabama, Georgia and Mississippi are thinking, yeah, we're okay with that. Please wall yourselves off from us.
Do that. I thought he was what? I thought he was going to go. Yeah, it's almost the reductio ad Hitlerum, isn't it? It's going. You're living on the streets.
We went totally the other way.
The other way. It's going. He made a success, so you could too. I think at least you could go. 1910. Charlie Chaplin invented the character of the tramp, and he did very well. Yeah, but no. Wow. Well, in a quiet week in British politics, yeah, right. The Prime Minister, nay, prime suspect, is now legally able to be called a convicted criminal, as Boris has been in receipt of what will most likely be only the first of many fines from the Metropolitan Police for breaking the law regarding gatherings during lockdown. The Chancellor, Rishi Sunak, also in receipt of a conviction, did the honourable thing and got talked out of resigning, because that would mean Boris would have to go too. Instead, Rishi said that Boris had done the honourable thing and apologised. The usual Addams family of Boris toadies agreed across the media and said it wasn't as if he'd actually gone into care homes himself and spread COVID and caused people directly to die. In an attempt to move us on from the trivialities of having British history's only criminal in charge of the country, you see, it's a new thing for us, folks. The delightful bastard offspring of the child catcher and Cruella de Vil, Priti Patel, brokered a deal with Rwanda to take our deported asylum seekers without bothering to put it to a vote in Parliament, where they're all off on Easter break eating their own chocolate Jesuses, and for the measly sum of £120 million as well, given to the caring and community-focused government there. Oh no, sorry, rabid, corrupt dictatorship. Well, I guess if you can't ask your similarly behaving friends for help, who can you turn to for these post-Brexit opportunities? And it's only 4 times as much as she's already paid the French for not doing what her Home Office hasn't done for years. Happy holidays, everyone.
To be fair, we do have a storied history of ignoring what's going on in Rwanda.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Exactly.
If we're going to put them somewhere.
Just shove them somewhere where we'll never think about them again. Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. Exactly.
So that's all the bad arguments and faulty reasoning we have time for this week. You'll find the show notes at fallaciostrump.com, and if you hear Trump say something stupid and want to ask if it's a fallacy, our contact details are on the contact page.
If you think we've used a fallacy ourselves, let us know. If you had a good time, please give us a review on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, or wherever you get your podcasts, or simply tell one other person in person about how much they'd like our podcast. And you can support the show at patreon.com/ftrump. Just like our Strawman level patrons, Steve Pickle, Schmoots, Mark Reike, and Amber R. Buchanan. Our True Scotsman level patrons, Kaz Tui, Andrew Houck, Max Beaver, and our top patron, Lauren. Thanks ever so much, everyone. Your support is really appreciated.
You can connect with those awesome people as well as us and other listeners in the Facebook group at facebook.com/groups/FallaciousTrump.
All music is by The Outburst and was used with permission. So until next time on Fallacious Trump, we'll leave the last word to the Donald.
That's right. Go home to mommy. Bye. Bye.
It's okay to determine what kids read based on your paranoid, warped, misogynistic views of something that might be construed by a paranoid, misogynistic, extremist, anti-LGBTQ, anti-LGBTQT plus equality.
Try again. You did the Q before the T that time.
It's okay to determine what kids read based on your paranoid, warped, misogynistic views of something that might be construed by a paranoid, misogynist, anti-extremist, anti-LGBT. Right, okay, hang on. By a paranoid, misogynist, extremist, anti-LG. Stop.